Let me turn them on.
All right, we are live, guys.
There you go. Hello, everybody. Okay, this is XP Nicholas. You guys probably also know me from the Null Bitcoin community, but this is also with me Ian Worrell, the CEO of MyBit.
How's it going, guys? Glad to be here.
Awesome. And then we got Dan on the back line. He'll be also helping us moderate the channel. Now, if you guys are new here, what we're going to do is do a live Q&A. And the best question is going to get 100 MyBits. And just make sure you guys don't post more than 2 questions per person. And when you post a question, just post your actual address for MyBit as well, so you can get the MyBits if you win. Okay, got more people coming in. And let's see who has the first question here. Okay, hey guys. Let the questions begin. Okay, we got first question. MJS. What are the expected returns on the investment when participating in a project?
Okay, so I mean that varies significantly between the asset class and like what IoT device. The numbers that we've ran in Germany in the solar market there range between 4 and 7% annually. And that's just from investing in the asset itself, not the price of the coin, which will probably be much higher than that.
That was awesome and fast answer. Good job, Ian. And let's see, you got question number 2, Jay. Okay. Now, how do you guys plan to handle the insurance aspect of handling crowdsourced machinery?
Yeah, so that falls on the IoT provider. Like the hardware provider has insurance relationships already. And how we do that is we're either pricing that into the cost of the asset. So some things initially like 20,000 euro for solar, it may be 24,000 for insurance to cover for like a 3-year period or whatever is typical with that. The other option, which is more flexible and we like, is just taking a percent of the revenue, like 3 to 5%, which will cover insurance costs and maintenance costs and everything there. So that's how we're managing that.
Awesome way to keep it all managed. And for new guys coming in, basically this is the live Q&A where we give 100 MyBits to the best question. Just make sure you don't post more than 2 questions per person and post your address for receiving the payment if you win. And let's go into question number 3. Okay, and as we know, there is so many ICO projects, but what marketing system do you and the MyBit team do to attract current market? This is a question by Bang.
Yeah, so within the cryptocurrency community, we have a great marketing team. But outside is really where we're focusing because that's the big money in the mainstream adoption. So it's a mixture of email marketing, social media, PR, and then also leveraging these big IoT companies that already have marketing and are well-known brands. When we partner with them and announce that publicly, that will give us massive exposure, and that'll really have a great impact on the network and the price and everything.
Yeah, I love how you guys are actually reaching out to people outside of the crypto universe, and that's the best part. Now we got a Connor asking, where do you see this project have affected the world by 2022?
Oh, so that's 5 years from now. So
exactly.
So I think 2020 is going to be the biggest year for Bitcoin, blockchain, IoT. Really, just I think 2020 is going to be the year of technology, and I think we'll see a lot of these ideas. Like self-driving taxis, Bitcoin being used in daily life. Like I think that's really all going to happen in 2020. And that just gives us so many opportunities on where we can replicate this. And I really see us being like the go-to platform for the machine economy. And all things like every aspect of your daily life, from getting something delivered by a drone or a self-driving taxi driving you somewhere, using a 3D printer at a mall or in your house. I see MyBit being a part of every single component of that. And I think it's, if we do this right, this is very big.
Endless uses. I love it. There you go. And GRM5 is asking, how will MyBit deal with the micro nano payments and transaction fees? Since we all know that MyBit is an ERC20 token.
So what we really want to do is make all the payments in as near real time as possible. But you have to set up the structuring and how payments are sent out to factor in transaction fees and costs. So there may be, and most likely be, a minimal threshold before a transaction is sent out. So you might have to wait a little bit longer until you have, $20 or $100 or whatever the number is to receive the payment. We're going to try everything in our power to make it as near real time as possible.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure you can make it real time. I got a multiple part question from Joshua. So he's asking, what's the biggest strength and weaknesses of MyBit when competing with other e-currency, and how do you plan to exploit those strengths and weaknesses? So basically here's comparing this to other actual tokens, crypto tokens.
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider it as an e-currency at all for both legal reasons, and the goal of MyBit is more of an investment type token than being used in daily life to replace currency. So I see the strength of it as actually having a utility value, and where, Bitcoin, you're reliant on who accepts Bitcoin, and a lot of these other tokens have no utility. You can't actually do anything with them. So the strength is there's actually a use for MyBit, so that'll keep people buying, using it. The risk of it and the downside is always regulation. And that could be, regulating cryptocurrencies or tokens more. It could be regulating fractional ownership and crowd sales. Right now, everything we do is legal, but you never know what the future holds. So I would say regulation is the risk associated with it.
Yeah, we want to be ready for all those mainstream adoptions that are going to come later on. And Ian, what do you think? Dan says, Dan E, what realistic things can members of the MyBit community do to help project you and team?
So the biggest help is just getting exposure right now and help pushing people towards our material that just outlines what we're doing and what our vision is. So that's the best help right now. Then as we get into launching the platform in early 2018, it's helping getting people signed up to Alpha, getting investors on board to use the platform. Yeah,
definitely. You just about spreading the word for now, and it's gonna grow big really fast. Now we got a Van Asmi saying, what are our plans to expand partnerships with vendors in Asia in terms of expansion and in Southeast Asia? Because we all know those are very big markets and they're booming right now and just entering crypto really fast.
Yeah, so our first market's the EU, followed most likely by Australia and that region to start getting an Asian Pacific stronghold and people there on the ground. And then, Asia is a completely different market and culture and everything about it. So it involves us probably after year one or closer to year two, hiring people on the ground there that are familiar with the culture, because our current team honestly would not be as effective but I see the huge market potential there. So it's definitely on our radar, and it's more closer to the 2-year mark when we've proved it in Europe and markets we know. Yazer will help us rapidly scale the platform and expand exponentially.
Okay, now do I want to skip over Dominic's question? I didn't find it quite clear enough. He can repeat a question again. And we got a Rocket asking, Rocket League, how does MyBit differentiate from similar ICOs such as Power Ledger ICO? Not sure if you heard of that one.
Yeah, kind of did. So, I mean, I get that question like on a daily basis where it's a lot of like sun contract and certain things like that that are commoditizing renewable energy itself. So you can trade energy with your neighbors and stuff like that. And we don't do anything of that nature because it's illegal. And as cool as the idea is, and I love it, you currently cannot bring that to market because in the majority of markets like Germany, US, and where solar is being adopted, you become a public utility and you have all these tax issues if you start selling energy to your neighbor. So, I mean, I love the concept of these things, but right now you can't even bring them to market and you're relying on regulation to be overturned, which I think will happen. But it's kind of just a matter of time. Will they run out of runway before they can actually go to market? And that's how we really differentiate from them. To my knowledge and from people I've talked to, we are the only blockchain company that is doing peer-to-peer investments in machines. And nobody else is doing exactly what we're doing or really even close to it. So I think we stand out pretty substantially from companies like Power Ledger and Sun Contract and all of those.
You're the first, and you're very much ahead of everybody. I just don't see how we can have competition anytime real soon. Now, Vasi314 is asking a very nice forecasting question. When is MyBit's goal to reach 1 billion market cap? I like that.
All right, I love the question. So, I mean, we can't give concrete numbers, of course, but I mean, I envision this being a multi-billion-dollar company within 3 years. If we do this correctly, I mean, it sounds crazy, but we're doing something that's pretty major and will attract interest from a lot of different investors, IoT providers, and it's a real world use case. I think it's realistic to say it will be worth over 2 or 3 billion within 3 years.
I think it's very realistic. I agree. I'll have to skip over a little Voss's question. It's kind of a funny question, but it's not good for this MyBit scenario. And I got a really good question from Mads. He's wondering if at all MyBit, how MyBit would be able to work with alternative forms of renewable energy sources, kind of like windmills and those other hydro sources.
So solar is really all we have on our radar for renewables right now, because windmills, we want to focus on the micro and the nano grids and bringing renewables to small scale, like houses and stuff like that. Windmills are more of a large scale project, like a commercial PV farm. So in theory, it could work with our platform, by enabling like institutional type investors and big funds to be able to use MyBit just to more effectively invest and receive revenue, which will happen, but it's not really our primary focus because we really want to just target, give people power, give them the power to get the clean energy, give them the power to invest in it. And eventually, we'll be able to replicate this in commercial use cases because there's it's not really our vision and our passion right now.
A quick shout out to Dan. I'm not sure if everybody else here is typing. I might want to mute the mic. And let me see. Next question is from Crypto. Okay, we'll need to skip over that question real quick. Okay. I like this one. Now the thing, you're right about the actual windmills. It's not really a small investment, so it's not something we can bring to the people, and that's what we want to do is bring power to the people. And I have a ring sec asking how to strategize and realize the vision of MyBit's vision is to democratize the ownership of machines and fall into control of centralized financing. So that's kind of a similar question about, bringing power to the people. Do you have anything else to say up to that?
Yeah, I mean, so the big picture with what we see is as machines the machine economy takes effect over the next few years, it's going to create this whole new asset class for investors to, capitalize on machines that generate revenue. And the current model would just be you having to send your money to a mutual fund or investment fund. And then they would invest the money for you and they would take 10 or 20%. What we're doing is enabling investors of all shapes and sizes to be able to directly invest in these machines with no minimum financial requirements and no intermediaries taking big chunks of their money. And we do this, and so it's a more secure and faster process that's just cleaner, and also just puts more profits in the investors' pockets because you don't have people along the way just taking a piece of the pie. It's all just automated with smart contracts, and it's really cool.
It's just directed at people, which is the best part. And I have Skrilla. Skrilla is awesome. Many of us are anticipating a significant rise in MyBit's 24-hour volume in September. What do you believe will be the main cause of this?
I think it's just getting more people involved and the exposure, because our ICO was pretty much, or token sale, sorry, was pretty stealth, where we raised a very little amount of money comparatively to other ones. And I think right now with like Forbes and NASDAQ and some big sources publishing us towards the end, it's just starting to get on a lot of people's radar. So it's thousands of people that missed the token sale that will be looking to get in before it really starts skyrocketing as we get towards the end of the year. And we have a lot of news about like partnerships and deals that we're signing go through.
Yeah. Now we got another expansion question from Crypto. He's asking, will MyBit have a call center for support, and how are you going to handle customer service? It's a more of a longer term question.
So I'm not really a fan of a call center or anything like that. So what we are going to try to do is offload a lot of that customer support to the IoT providers. So, our platform with smart contracts, they don't really mess up. As long as we program them correctly, really most of the questions and support are going to be people, have issues with their solar panel, like not working and stuff like that. So we can offload a majority of that customer support to those companies. And I mean, what I really have in mind, we haven't really looked into this and how feasible it is, but I'm a huge proponent of decentralized customer service. So basically, instead of having like Google or somebody like that have just a bunch of people that don't really know much answering questions, you incentivize community members that have a vested interest, like just some tokens for answering questions. And I think that's really the way you can scale customer support and actually provide good customer support when you scale.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to do it, because you just bring the power to community to help, and that's the best way to keep it decentralized. Now, I do want to give a shout out to all the new people joining us right now. Basically, just 2 questions per person, and best question gets 100 MyBits. And let's continue on with Vasey. I like this one. Are you considering switching to IOTA or EOS in future for the actual blockchain?
So we're keeping a close eye on IOTA, and we'll actually be up in Berlin meeting with some of their team in September, just to discuss, they're a little bit behind, or pretty far behind on the smart contract component of it. But Tangle, their consensus mechanism, seems to really be working. And the fact that there's no fees for micropayments is something we can't ignore. So we're definitely, we love Ethereum, and it's initially the plans are sticking with Ethereum, but we're keeping a close eye on IOTA and staying really involved in their community and their development. And EOS, no. We're just, I mean, unless they actually deliver on what they're promising, I don't really see that working. But IOTA, yeah, we're definitely keeping that in mind and staying close to it.
You guys are considering everything. Amazing. This question didn't really understand from Vanasmin. Is MyBit planning to have partnerships with other shared economy firms? If so, how?
Yes. So one thing that we're exploring right now, because we love their vision and their team, is Slockit. So Slockit's building, if you aren't familiar with them, the universal sharing network. So any type of device, like a bike or anything that you can share, you equip with a smart lock that unlocks when you make like a Bitcoin or Ethereum payment to it. And we see a huge use case because who finances those devices?
Exactly.
So it creates a whole new business model for us where we can finance all of these revenue generating devices in the sharing economy. And I think that will be a beautiful partnership for both of us. And, that's the main thing on our radar right now. Of course, we have, plans when we're open to if something makes sense. We love partnerships because it's how you get companies to grow and scale quickly. But that's really the first one that's on our radar for this year.
Now we got more of a similar question from Brian. The platform can be applied to other uses. I know AI is the future plans, but what other smaller endeavors do you see going after in between? So like, do you have any smaller moves planned?
Yeah, so starting with solar energy and then real estate. So I think I've mentioned this before, but in Dubai, we're planning on working with Slockit to enable the investment of both like commercial and residential real estate. So that's a really cool market with a ton of money in real estate, and that'll be great for the network. On a smaller scale, we're looking into testing also in Dubai with self-driving taxis. Of course, that's not going to be able to bring to market at a sizable rate for another 3 to 5 years, but we're going to be at the forefront of that. And then just some other cool use cases are, cryptocurrency ATMs, maybe even Bitcoin mining equipment. 3D printers is something, some delivery drone stuff. Like there is a lot of smaller use cases. And we still have a lot of work to do on actually crunching the economics of that and some regulation. But the sky's really the limit. And we encourage anybody from the community that has a great idea, send it over to us and we'll explore it. Like we're really open to that. And we want, you guys to be an active part of helping us grow this.
Community always gives the best feedback, and these opportunities are just endless. Well, this is one of my favorite questions, I gotta say. From, I'm not sure how to pronounce this username, Exnashi, okay, if I got it correct, but what are the biggest hurdles in your opinion, and how do you plan to overcome them, and any obstacles, basically?
Yeah, so the hardest thing is regulation. Being able to, we can't just bring this to market like globally for any asset class in any market. So it's kind of a slower process on releasing this, where we have to analyze the regulations for specific assets, the crowdfunding components in different countries, fractional ownership. From a technology standpoint, it's pretty easy. As long as, Ethereum stays functional, and they have enough support and money behind them. They might have some hiccups, but we're positive on that. I really think it's regulation, and that's really just making sure that we hire the right teams to do the due diligence, and we're just really careful and look at every aspect of it when we're hitting new markets.
Yeah, just about being careful and those, being really careful about the laws and everything. Okay, I have Connor asking, for this to be considered a success from your eyes, Ian, what needs to happen? Okay, this is more like a personal question for you.
So for this to happen, like I really want to see us take over solar because I'm really passionate about renewable energy, and I really want to see it for autonomous cars, like taxis and cars and everything, because I see, millions, hundreds of millions of people, I don't know the exact number, rely on that as a source of income, from truck drivers, delivery drivers, taxis. That's going to replace a lot of jobs. So just by giving people like supplemental income and the ability to invest in this, won't fully replace their salary that, is made redundant from self-driving stuff, but it'll definitely help. And it's better to see the money split up, kind of like UBI, like universal basic income, that a lot of European countries are exploring as like machines and technology takes over. This is just a more efficient way. So it's not using taxpayer money to fund people. It's giving people the option to invest in machines instead of all the money flowing to the top and the corporations. So I'd say for this to really be successful, money's great and it drives people, but I really like it from the energy and the autonomous driving part. And I think if we hit those two industries really hard and we make a difference in people's lives, that's really how I see it being successful.
I gotta drop in here and say that I actually been following what Mercedes has been doing with their self-driving truck, and I just see all these big corporations trying to take over those self-driving vehicles and just steal all the jobs more or less. And the world needs us to actually give some power back to the people with these decentralized vehicles and driving solutions.
And we actually fit in really nicely into this because even companies like Mercedes, Uber is a big exception because they sit on so much money, it's ridiculous. But even some of these major companies, it would cost billions of dollars to be able to launch a fleet of self-driving cars or self-driving trucks. They don't have that. And a better solution than them going into debt to like a Goldman Sachs or an institutional investor would be open up this and raise the money through crowdfunding on our platform, and they'll still make money in, for the service fee or, like certain components of it, but it's just an easier way for them to finance this. And I think we fit in perfectly with it.
And I gotta drop in my question. Are you able to give us any sneak peeks for what's about to happen in September? Because I know some big things are coming.
What am I allowed to say?
Good question.
We're launching a pilot program. We're in the process of relocating the team to Prague right now. And end of September into October, we're going to be in full force from development and our pilot program and partnership arm. So I envision in October through next spring, just constant media coverage and news about partnerships and verticals and deals we've signed. So, I think it's going to be huge, and I hope it is.
It's kind of difficult for us, being on the inside, not to give out information early because, there's some things that are not supposed to be said early on, and it's just so much potential. I feel bad not being able to say any of that, right?
Yeah, and it bugs me too. We just don't want to, when we're dealing with big companies, if you disclose stuff too early, it could kill the whole relationship because they like dictating, how the press is released and how it's framed and everything. So if I'm just saying it on a YouTube channel, that could actually hurt us. But it kills me because I'm excited and I'm just biting my tongue.
I know, right? This is more like a similar question from Rocky. I think this is his third or fourth question, so he has to slow down a bit. But do you have any news on potential exchanges that will be adding MyBit in the near future? And, like you said, some information you can't just give out, this early, but are you able to say anything?
I can't talk about that because a few exchanges that we've been communicating with made it clear that we can't disclose or even discuss what we've talked about with them. But what I would say with that is we're like a long-term game with this. We're not really we're not a pump and dump token sale sadly, 80% plus out there are. The real value with this is going to come over 2 to 3 years, and it doesn't really need to be on an exchange right now. The liquidity is great if you need money. That's why we're pushing to get on a few exchanges just in case people need to cash out for personal reasons. But the real money in the 100 to 300x return is longer term, and we will 100% be on exchanges by then.
People gotta realize, most, real legit tokens, have more longer term projections, and you just gotta be, slow and constant, to win the marathon. And this is a question I didn't fully understand from Jared. He's asking, have you had any discussions with or about partnering with Elon Musk company, Solar City? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, and I'm familiar with Tesla as well that purchased them because they're doing a lot in Dubai with self-driving taxis. So it's going to involve strategically getting that partnership, getting in with some smaller companies and testing and validating our technology before that. You can't really just jump right into Solar City and one of the leaders in the world. But we're positioning ourselves where that's 100% on our radar. And once we prove ourselves, then it's time to really approach them. And so the answer is yes. It's just that something like that takes time.
This is a very good question from Jay. I want to quickly get it across. Basically, he's wondering, how do you plan to keep all the information relating to IoT devices and investors, owners decentralized? What kind of database do you plan to use, since this actual token is not giving us any additional blockchain?
Right. So what we're planning on implementing is BigChain's IPDB, the Interplanetary Database, which is the closest thing to a scalable, decentralized database you can get. And it's really, initially for our first launch, because BigChain is still has some bugs in it. Last we played around with it, it might just be Mongo to start in the first few markets. But the goal is to really get to a BigChain type thing. With either storage or IPFS. Most likely IPFS is the file system. But again,
So
like those are very early technologies, and we'll probably hit the market sooner than they're ready to actually go in a production setting. So it's something that we're definitely going to implement. It may just start with like a distributed database like Mongo.
Yeah, just has to start somewhere and wait for the other markets to catch up because we're going really fast and heading with lots of momentum. Now, this is more like a story type question. I have Crypto Gamer asking, what inspired you guys to develop MyBit, and you plan on developing other projects with MyBit as a base?
Yeah, so let's see. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin for going on like 5 years now, and
wow.
And I mean, I've been involved with Ethereum for over 2 years. And this really just seems like I really, I was trading it, mining it, had some software company that did like POCs and small stuff. And this was really about a year ago. I was thinking, okay, now it's actually time to make this a reality. Ethereum has validated itself. Bitcoin's like here to stay. Like, let's actually do this and build like a unicorn and like a $1 billion plus company. And what I really saw an opportunity for was bridging the gap between IoT devices and like physical assets and Ethereum. And what we were initially going to do is just launch MyBit as kind of like a registry service for IoT devices. And when we really dived into the economics behind that and passed around the white paper to people in the community, there wasn't really too much of a monetization and a business model after that. So then, I have a background in finance. I was like, you know what? This is the most beautiful tool for the machine economy and investing in IoT devices. And I was like heavily involved in debates about UBI and like the socioeconomic benefits of like machines and AI taking over jobs. And this just kind of clicked like 8 months ago. And nobody else was doing it, and we didn't know why. So that's kind of what really inspired it. So it's a really cool technology, and it has, a benefit socioeconomically too, which is what I'm really passionate about.
We can definitely hear the passion in your voice. So that's the first thing I heard when I talked to you. What was it, maybe weeks ago on Skype, right? Now we got a little bit of an easier question from Mario asking, how will MyBit be made easy for the average user, one that don't even currently understand Bitcoin?
Oh, I mean, that's the biggest component of our success. And the main goal of it is to let people use this without ever knowing they're using blockchain. Because most of these, even Augur, which is one of my favorite blockchain apps, feels very engineered when you're using it. And if you didn't have a grasp on Bitcoin or Ethereum, you wouldn't really use it. If you look at some of the most successful apps in history, like Uber, you click a button. Twitter,
Done.
like and Facebook, like it's losing users as it's becoming more complex and offering too much. So the main goal of it is ease of use and the user experience, just making it as simple as possible. And then also layering over payment services so people can invest right from like a bank draft or a credit card. And, behind the scenes, it does all the conversions into Ether and MyBit. But just making it as simple as possible and reducing the barrier to entry. So you don't have to, buy a cryptocurrency, figure out how to do that, figure out how to store it, figure out how to transfer. Once you get that, then figure out and that's there's too many barriers to entries and like roadblocks in a lot of these great blockchain ideas. So we're just trying to eliminate that with user experience and a lot of payment options.
I did see a couple of questions repeated, so I do see also a couple of new users. So it's just basically best questions wins 100 MyBits, and make sure you also post your address for receiving MyBits if you do win. I have A Vic asking, Do you believe in MyBit, and how far are you going to make this project a success? What is your drive to make it work? I mean, this is a very easy to answer, right?
I mean, I'm a gritty entrepreneur. I'm gonna make this work, and we have enough financial backing, both from the company and personally. Like, this is my goal in life right now. Like, this is my true passion, and I'm gonna make this happen. And the team shares a similar viewpoint as I do.
And the best part is when you have a community that is invested, so as much as you did or other people did, they are very passionate in helping as well. And that's what I've seen with other communities and the previous experiences I had. Like, the best help you can ask for, you always get it from the community. And it's just amazing how fast our community is going. Okay. Got Philly D. He's a cool guy. So he's asking more of a funny question. So I'm a blind guy. Can I get behind the wheel of one of those self-driving cars?
Say that again?
He's asking if he can get behind a wheel of a self-driving car. I'm sure that's a plan for later on, but you got to give it a few years first.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how to answer that.
I know, right? Okay, this is a better question for Philly. What was your dream when you started?
I mean, the dream was really just, this is an opportunity to bring blockchain mainstream and actually get like a lot of users. And, Steemit is probably one of the only other blockchain companies that has like organic traction and is actually growing the ecosystem and bringing in people to their platform and then getting them into virtual currency. So that's what we're trying to do as well, is bring people into our platform, then bring them into virtual currency, not the other way around like most are doing. So, I mean, I see this as a huge potential to bring blockchain really mainstream and getting, and that's a trickle down effect. Like, we're all a community in this together. So if we bring in more people, that then in turn trickles down to Ethereum, other altcoins, other token sales. And it's just really good for the community, because I'm a huge decentralization supporter. And I see this as the future, and it involves all of us working together and like growing with each other for this to work.
Well, I very much like this question. It's from Martin Kaiser. What are you going to facilitate? Are you going to facilitate ways for people that already own solar panels, for example, to participate in MyBit ecosystem?
Yeah, so that is something where we're exploring the regulation on that still. And the actual, because, in theory, it makes sense where if somebody wanted to liquidate like a portion of their ownership and sell that in exchange, like that works in theory, but we still have to explore the economics behind that and the technology behind that. If there's enough people that have solar panels that want to sell, so if there's even a market for that, and then the best way to actually integrate that and implement it into the MyBit platform. So it's something we've definitely thought about, but it's still too early on to like say for sure if we're going to go for that or if we're not.
And if there's enough people in the community behind anything, we'll definitely consider it. Yeah. So that's for sure.
Right.
And I got a couple of similar questions from a couple of people about expanding your team, and do you plan to expand the team right now, or when you plan to do that?
We're actually in a pretty major hiring process right now, where we're doubling, if not tripling, the size of the team. And everybody is based in, some people in the UK, but mainly Central Europe. We're trying to get as many people here between Prague and Berlin as we can. And it's looking like within the next 8 weeks, we'll be up close to 15 people on full-time, split between business development, tech, and marketing. So still keeping the team relatively small, but that allows us to pay higher, get the best candidates, the best talent, and just really have a drive to build this and make it work.
And it's not about the actual quantity; it's about the quality of those people and the work they make, and do with passion. And we got actually a job application already from Dominic. He's asking, are you guys looking for industrial designer, UX designers to help further the economy at the company?
God, yeah, we are. Tell them to send me over a resume.
Definitely. Just come to our MyBit Slack, and You can just post in there or contact Ian or me. I'm XP. And Ian, what's your handle again?
Warzy, I think, with W.
There you go. Just come to us in the MyBit Slack. Anything you need. Let's find a good question for you. I think this is a very simple question to answer. I have Dorian asking, if you buy the token from MyBit, are they obligated to hand them out, and when exactly? Well, this is done by a smart contract, so it's all done automatically, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, if they're still looking for tokens, go on our Slack and somebody will help you, but you typically just have to add the custom token to your Ether wallet. And it's all done. We don't actually manually do anything. We automated it with the smart contract.
Oh yeah, so, with Ethereum and ERC20 tokens, it's so easy. And you can already see, if you go to etherscan.io, you can already just type in your address, and we are already verified on there. You can see how much exactly MyBits you have. But if you want to use something like My Ether wallet, you can just add a custom token, and it's boom right there. It has been there the whole time, you just didn't see it. And I have ZGamer49 asking, when MyBit expands to multiply IoT assets, how are you going to deal with differing return of investment, ROI?
So each investment is, what we're doing is, like, when you purchase a MyBit token, you're not automatically purchasing like an ownership stake in a variety of machines. Like, we're not a mutual fund, we're not an investment fund. We're a platform that just facilitates investment. So you will manually choose between different investment options, and you will be able to pick, see your returns and everything and projections for them before you make the investment.
This is part 2 from the same ZGamer. He's asking, want people want to invest in devices that make the most money?
So it's basically saying, like, the most profitable items will be able to attract most investors. So there's still,
I mean, that's natural, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's natural, but there's also supply limitations on that. So if solar is the most lucrative, but there's only so many solar people that are registering, then there's still, people will be really trying to get into solar, but they will also get into other investments that are the next best thing.
If you have a practical question, if you can crunch some numbers for FPL, he's asking, what ROI percent would I get from $10,000 investment in MyBit today? 1 year down the line, how much will that make me? So let's say, I'm guessing, if he wanted to invest in solar, because that's the first thing.
Yeah, so we have it in our white paper, the exact numbers and projections. So if he was taking $10,000 and putting that into a solar investment, the average return is 4% on that, so that'd be $400 a year. But the token value itself, I don't know this off the top of my head, but we basically crunched and showed the formula for your investment, what percent of the network to the total supply that is. And based on what we're projecting on total volume of transactions, how much you'll make from that investment just off of the transaction fees we assess. So that's something that's very variable based on just if the projections are true, because right now they are just projections. But in the white paper, I don't know what section off the top of my head, but there's definitely a formula for just guesstimating that, I guess is the best way to put it.
So everything's already well in there if you want to take a closer look and research for yourself. But it is, some very serious numbers we're talking about here. Okay, we got Burger Huddle. He's our current moderator and a very cool guy. How did you come up with the name MyBit? It's catchy and has mass appeal, and I definitely agree with him.
So I actually owned the domain from a few years ago and it was weird. What I had in mind when I bought the domain is kind of like I think it was a Reddit type platform where people like told their stories about like Bitcoin and stuff. And then just like never, it was kind of just a side project, and then never ended up going through with it because, it was never going to make money.
Oh.
And it was kind of like and then I had that domain, and then I was looking for names for this company, and I was like, MyBit just makes sense because it's like you're owning a bit or a tiny fractional piece of machines. And I think the name just fit in perfectly with this business model, and it was just pure luck.
I never knew that. 3 years ago, really?
Yeah, it was a while ago. It could have been longer.
That's a great question. I didn't know that myself. That's cool. There you go. Okay, this is more like a skeptical question from Miltos. He's asking, I want to ask if you have a plan B. You got funds from the ICO. Let's say the funds are exhausted. What happens with the project then?
Yeah, so I mean, we have over 2 years of runway with the money that we've raised. So it's not really planned on being exhausted before then. And also taking some security measures where portions of it are liquidated into cash in case there's a hack or whatever sort of breach. So we're protecting against that. I guess if 2 or 3 years from now we're running out of money, and for whatever reason, like everything's a total flop and the tokens aren't worth anything, then we're in trouble. Like anything.
I'm just asking, what if Bitcoin disappears?
Startup, but I think we're in a very good position with the amount of runway we have. We're still running it like a lean startup, so we have several years there. And the financials are really the least of our concerns, which is really nice in a startup. It's really, I've been involved with startups where money's always an issue, and that just, makes it hard to always innovate because it's always on your mind. But here it's really just, focusing on making this happen because we have the funding, and it's really just putting in the work, getting the partnerships, and navigating the regulation.
Yeah, and some people are worried why it has been quiet in the last, week or so, but it's because you guys have been working hard and switching offices, and there is so much happening behind the scenes.
$dollars, you don't just there's a lot of stuff you have to do, set up new bank accounts. You can't just transfer like $2 million plus to a standard business account. You have to, get you have to, a lot of things go into effect here. You're in new tax brackets for your company, new audit requirements. There's a lot of just operational things that'll take us another, 3 weeks to a month to really navigate through. And then also in the process of that, we're expanding our team, doing interviews, mapping out the project. So, it's even the beginning of September may be somewhat quiet, but, end of September to October, it's just going to be a mad rush of a lot of news, a lot of publicity, and when we can actually start sharing things that we've been working on.
I just can't wait. And September is my birthday, so it's going to be amazing. Ocean is asking, when you spend the token, how long does it get locked out for? And do you know, if it's basically return deleted, what happens to the token after you invest in the project?
Yeah, so it gets locked up in the project until you choose to sell your stake in that project, or until, basically it's locked up there indefinitely. As long as the asset's generating revenue, that lock entitles you to revenue sharing. But then at any point in time, you can sell that ownership stake in that revenue stream to somebody else in exchange for tokens. So it's pretty much, it's double-sided. It's flexible where it's locked up, but you can also sell it if you need it.
Yeah, and you have complete control over it, which is awesome. Okay, it's also more a skeptical question is from, I still can't pronounce your username, I'm sorry. Aviomexaxi, Aviome, I don't know. But my second question, almost all the success of MyBit will depend on a team working on it. And that is definitely true. How would you describe your team in 3 words?
Awesome, intelligent, passionate.
Wow, right there, boom, he was ready for that. Definitely agree. I mean, if you don't hear a passion from his voice, I'm not sure what else to tell you. I mean, the first thing you do is when you look at a company that's especially an ICO, you look at a team, and that was a no-brainer for me when I saw your team. And we got,
I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. So, I mean, our first steps in what we're doing in September is completely redesigning like the UI, making our social accounts more professional. Because, I mean, we've been bootstrapping it to this point. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we know it with the video explainers, the website, the interface of the actual application. So, I mean, that's really our first thing is just getting everything up to par. And that's like really our first focus on everything.
And I have Jerem33BDX referring to the current, debate over Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash when he's asking, don't you think that campaigns may want to centralize solar panel in order to maximize MyBit income like happened with Bitcoin? Are you not afraid of that?
So, I mean, what basically can happen with MyBit is you can just have, even though we're opening up the platform to investors of all sizes, you can always have like a company like Goldman put in way more money than people and own a lot more solar panels than others. But that's still not really truly a centralized system. And I see with like Bitcoin as well, like it's becoming very centralized over the years, but it's still a much better solution than a bank account for transferring money and storing value. So
Definitely.
even, and like, I don't like how it's becoming centralized, but it's still a better option than pure centralized solutions. So, I mean, I guess that's my kind of answer to that.
It's a good question. I mean, answer, because it's something that's just inevitable, but just having the best version of it that you can make out of it is what you can do. You've Connor asking another question. When do you anticipate you will first generate revenue? And if not, how long can MyBit sustain itself? Okay, so we already answered how long you can sustain at least 2 years from the funding we have right now. But what's your like actual when do you think the actual revenue can be seen?
We're planning to initially monetize in February when we do the pilots, but to actually monetize enough to sustain operations, it'll probably be more closer to the 18-month or 2-year mark.
Yeah, we just can't stress enough how long-term this project is, because it's really looking to take on the whole energy and a lot of these markets which need our help basically. Okay, this is a personal question from a modern DJ. Can you detail the current salaries at MyBit for your team? I don't know.
I mean, it's all, I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that because of privacy stuff, but we outperform, like, you make more with us than at like a equal like corporate position. And among like startups, we're in a top tier where we match salaries, we reward people. So we're all about quality. And if you're offered a job here, you're going to be paid at least 50% more than a comparable job somewhere else. And it's hard to benchmark that because some startups, really highly funded ones, do pay like what we do. But we're really in the business of finding quality over quantity when it comes to our team.
Very good answer. I mean, like you said earlier, it's all about finding the talent and getting this done properly. Because it's not about having many team members, it's about having those really good ones that can make the most difference. And we do have multiple people asking how can they work for MyBit, and if they can, and definitely we are looking for talent. So just come to the Slack, hit us up with your resume. We'll be happy to take a look. Okay, now this is from Eastside. He says MyBit has the potential to possibly change the world, and I'm definitely agreeing. Knowing that, how does that make you and your team feel? And once successful, do you have any other industries on your radar in the future for like the long term? I'm guessing like a 10-year outlook.
So I mean, how it makes us feel is that's the whole reason why we're doing this. It provides. It's a really good thing for just like, it sounds so corny when I say it, but I mean, it's a really good thing for the world. And I sound like every other stupid entrepreneur that says they're going to change the world. And that's why we do this. We love it. And then like long term, so energy, commercial property, and then autonomous vehicles is going to be one that'll be rolled out over 6 or 7 years, because there's taxis, there's delivery drones, there's farming equipment, there's commercial like building equipment that'll be machines, warehouse equipment, personal like bodyguards when robots come out. Like there is a lot in just that autonomous vehicle and that autonomous utility space. And that's what's really on our radar right now of capitalizing.
And that's going to be our actual last question, because Dan did just close up the questions. And I want to thank everybody for participating in the questions real quick.
Yeah,
how do you like the questions, Dan?
Loved it. Yeah, that was awesome. Should do this more often.
I actually learned a lot of stuff myself I didn't even know about you, Ian. Now, Dan is definitely going to announce the winner and the live chat, and he'll just be hitting up those addresses with any small and random donations. But actual, the 100 MyBit is going to be a big amount once September hits. That's for sure. And Ian, do you have anything to add before we finish this? Any small sneak peeks for what's coming up in September? Because I'm just can't wait for September, man.
I mean, honestly, you're going to have to wait. I'm sorry. But I just really want to thank everybody for coming to this. And so we just look forward to delivering on everything. And we love having you in the community. Like, this is going to be a lot of fun for all of us.
Definitely. I mean, it's all about passion and having a big impact. And that's what MyBit is doing right now. Anyway, I'm definitely me or Dan are definitely gonna save these questions, the ones that were submitted after the closure of questions. So you guys will be hearing from us again, and this is something that's definitely gonna happen. Another Q&A, right?
Perfect. Yeah, we can repurpose it for FAQs. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, of course. Anyway, if you don't have anything else to add, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Ian, and I just can't wait for a couple more days, and September's coming, guys.
That's everything. Appreciate it.
Nice having you guys here, and see you in the MyBit Slack.
Bye.
Bye.